Welcome to Season 2 of the Sister Mentors podcast. For over 25 years, Sister Mentors has been nurturing the next generation of women of color leaders. Our work centers around the needs and dreams of women and girls of color in the face of deep-seated institutional inequities found in the educational system. Over 100 women and girls of color have evolved in outstanding ways thanks to Sister Mentors. And with the help of Sister Mentors, they are on their way to earning higher education degrees, particularly Ph.Ds. On this podcast, you will get to know some of the mentors and mentees as they tell me about their lives and educational journeys. These women and girls share their moving stories of who they are, where they come from, and how Sister Mentors was instrumental in keeping them on their educational paths. In this heartwarming and insightful episode, join us as Dr. Regina Fuller-White, a recent Ph.D. graduate, shares her remarkable journey from Spartanburg, South Carolina, to becoming a global influencer in international affairs. Regina delves into how the unwavering support from her grandmother influenced her educational and professional pursuits. From her first passport to studying abroad in the Dominican Republic and Ghana, Regina's story is one of determination, cultural exploration, and the pursuit of opportunities that were once denied to Black women in her grandmother's era. I am your host, Camila Adams. Thanks for joining me as we celebrate the bold past and fierce future of Sister Mentors here on the Sister Mentors podcast. So let's get into it. First of all, let's just tell the people, who is Regina Fuller-White? Where do you come from? What are your roots like, and the people who raised you?
Right, yeah. So I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina, so near the top of South Carolina. And grew up in South Carolina. I currently live in the Midwest, so live in Wisconsin. And I think really just being born and raised in the South, I think just has had a profound impact on me and who I am. And I think one of my champions and I think favorite family members growing up has been my maternal grandmother. She has just really inspired my educational and professional journey so much. She dropped out of school, I think, when she was 10 or 11 to help pay bills because they needed someone to work. And so she's just been that provider and caretaker for her whole family. And so seeing her story, and she's always encouraged me to continue my educational journey. And I remember when I was in the third grade and when I would bring home a report card with all A's or A's and B's, she would give me $100, which in the 90s, $100 is a lot of money to an 8-year-old.
Absolutely. That is, talk about encouragement as well as that's a fantastic motivator.
It is. So I think she just has always been supportive of me, and I think just really has represented for me as a symbol of opportunities that weren't available to Black women, especially in Jim Crow, South Carolina, and how I could use my life and the opportunities that I had to go as far as I could possibly go.
Yeah. So was it her encouragement? Was it like a directly like, yes, you are absolutely going to college, or was this just something that was just kind of understood, or you just saw her life and had this decision on your own?
Yeah, I think it was understood. I know she always wanted me to go to college. I think just seeing how hard she worked and then how hard my mom and then my aunts and uncles on my mom's side of the family worked, and just what it's like to be a Black person, a working class black person, and just the economic opportunities or the lack of economic opportunities that are available to you. And I was like, I always just seeing that, I think, was the motivation for me to know that like getting college could be the key to having some kind of stability, economic stability, and just to have choices in life. I think that's what she always showed me, is that without education for many Black folks, we don't have many choices about how we spend our time and what we can do with our time. And so really wanted to make sure that I could have some choices for myself.
So where did you end up going to college?
Yeah, so I went to undergraduate in my hometown, actually. So went across down the street to Wofford College. It's a small liberal arts college. So didn't go far at all, and majored in Spanish and intercultural studies. Just really was always interested in being an anthropologist and learning about people and other cultures. And so went to Wofford. I studied abroad in the Dominican Republic for a semester, which was like my first time like leaving the US, and I was the first person in my family to get a passport. And so I think that was an exciting time for me to have study abroad opportunities and kind of really just see like what is the experiences African diaspora or Black folks outside of the U.S. I think that was a very life-changing experience for me. So I did like a month in South Africa in undergrad and then spent a semester in the Dominican Republic. So seeing colorism in the Dominican Republic and seeing how Dominicans treat Haitians and just the whole history of that island and just how the experiences of just people of color there and how American colonialism had impacted the current island of Hispaniola, like really has, I think, really started this desire in me to really like want to work in international affairs and how can I improve the lives of Black people or African descendant people around the world.
Okay, so that already started to your plans, your postgraduate plans already
Right.
started to formulate at this point, and so then you decide, you know what, I'm going to get my PhD, and where did that take place?
Right, right. So the PhD, I guess, idea started in undergrad. And so one thing I didn't mention, so my college had this scholarship where one senior per year could travel around the world for 12 months, funded by a private donor. So I
Wow.
wanted, yeah, really cool. I never thought I would get it. So I was a 25th Presidential International Scholar. And so I traveled to, I don't know, I think 12 countries total throughout my senior year
Wow.
doing a research project, and I was, of course, looking at the African diaspora. And so I think I did four, I can probably name the countries: Nicaragua, Panama, Costa Rica, Brazil, Dominican Republic, and then I went to West Africa, to Senegal, went to Ghana for the first time, Tanzania, up to Egypt, into Israel, India, Germany, and then came back to the US. And so spent that
What a
whole, right?
fantastic
I
opportunity for
know.
for a young woman. Like, wow.
Right, right. I'm just like 22-year-old Regina. She was like really bold. When I think about the places that I stayed in, like I said, nothing wrong with
Yeah.
hostels are great, but I'm just like, 30 plus Regina
Yeah,
probably wouldn't stay in those places again.
exactly. They are always very two different people. Like, I've stayed at a hostel or two in my lifetime, but yeah, like now there's no way in the
No,
world
right,
I would.
right,
Wow,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that journey, I was traveling, talking, doing like anthropological research, really just meeting with Black communities around the world and just kind of really learning about their experiences. What did it mean to be Black or African descendant? And that's when I went to Ghana for the first time. And I was like, wow, West Africa is, it just reminded me so much of the South and so much of the Africanisms that I think we have in Black American culture. Like being in West Africa, you're like, yes, we came from West Africa. It's so obvious. I think of the way that West Africans talk to elders, the way they greet people, it felt like home. And I know Black folks say that all the time when they go to Africa, but like it really did. Being in West Africa felt like home. So came back to the US, had to finish out my senior year. So I was a fifth year senior, and I was like, I want to go back to Africa, and I really want to live and think about Africa from a very non-US perspective. So did my master's at the University of Ghana in African Studies for a year. And so I think that kind of really has like started this relationship not only with the country of Ghana, but really trying to think about the world and how people experience life from outside of the US. So the first time, so I came back to the US, and then I think I was living and working in DC, and I knew I wanted to do international policy. And everyone who was doing the cool things at my job then had PhDs. And so I was like, I need to go to
Mm,
grad school and I want to make more money because living in DC making $35,000 as one can
it's
imagine,
not it.
it's not it.
Yeah.
It's not it at all. So went to grad school, started my PhD program at University of Wisconsin in 2015 and met a sister mentor, Bathsheba, actually at a conference. It was an African Studies conference, and she had done her PhD work in Ghana. I think I was about to move back to Ghana at that time to do my dissertation research. And so she was like, there's this amazing group of women as you're, doing your PhD process. Do you want to join? And so that's when I first heard about Sister Mentors, I think in about 2018, and joined
And so what
officially
was
in 2020.
okay? Oh, okay. So while
Yes.
you first heard in 2018, officially joined in 2020. In that time period, was there any had you gone to like a meeting or two or any sort of like mixers or anything like that?
Yeah, so I had attended a graduation ceremony, and so I think the graduation ceremony for Sister Mentors happens in at the end of June every year, where not only are the PhD graduates celebrated, but celebrating the young women who've graduated from high school and college, and just
Mm.
seeing, I think, all the love and support in that Zoom room of just women of color cheering each other on. And I was like, this is the kind of community that I wanted to be a part of, um, to really just cheer on that next generation of girls that are coming up.
Yeah. So this is like probably something that you'd already had experienced in that situation, having spent so much time in Africa and abroad, and just kind of like purposefully putting yourself in the mix of other Black and others from the African diaspora. So this wasn't like necessarily a new feeling or experience for you, but it was definitely something that you wanted to continue, and you felt you needed.
Definitely, yeah. So I had mentored, part of a mentorship program through my sorority, with like middle school students throughout my coursework, and so I just miss connecting with girls of color, because when you're doing your dissertation field work, you're in it full time, and you're just really concentrating on that project that you're doing, which is great. But I think I just miss connecting with community, and really reaching back and having an impact and having some influence over girls that, are in high school and middle school who need mentors. And so that really attracted me to sister mentors, that I could continue my PhD program and finish, but also, that reaching back and trying to lift up that next generation was really important for me. So my mentee, Alea, I think she's in the seventh grade now. And so when we started, she was in the fourth or fifth grade. And
Oh wow.
yes, and she was really shy. And she reminded me, when I think about it, she just reminds me, I think, of a younger me, because I think I can, when I don't know folks, I can tend to be an introvert and really shy. And so it was just so nice to see her bloom from elementary school to middle school, and to see our relationship grow. One of the things that we would always do, she loves Judy Moody. She's a young adult, or I guess a children's author. And so we
Mm.
would read those books together and talk through over her favorite parts. She loves YouTube as well. And so I remember each of the mentoring sessions we will be on YouTube, and her YouTube and my YouTube channels are very, very different. So I learned a lot about like 10-year-old YouTube. There's a channel, I couldn't find the name of it for this episode, but there's a channel of this 10-year-old in London, and it's her and her parents, and they do pranks all the time. It was really funny, but we would watch shows together. And so I really enjoyed that, and just seeing what is life like for a 10-year-old girl, you know.
What were some of the difficulties you're experiencing with the process on your doctorate at the
Right.
time?
Yep. So I did my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in educational policy studies, and really highly ranked program. And I think most folks who go to this program want to be professors. So I think one of the difficulties that I faced was really trying to figure out what was going to be my post PhD career path if it wasn't going to be a professor. Because I think there's a lot of seminars and talks in the department about, this is how you get a postdoc, and this is how you get an assistant professor position. But I feel like there wasn't a lot of talk about, well, if you don't want to go into the academy, what are some of the career paths? So I think that was one challenge. I think the second one was just loneliness. PhD programs, I think,
Mm.
anywhere in the world are lonely, because it's a time where you, as a scholar, you show your scholar, I don't know, your scholarly prowess and all these amazing things that
Yeah.
you're able to do. And so the program wants you to do those things by yourself. And I just really struggled.
Mm.
um I'm like, I'm in my head all the time. I want to talk to someone
Yeah.
else. Like, maybe I don't know if this idea is great, and just really trying to figure that out. So the loneliness. And I think the third one, as a first generation college graduate, my parents don't have graduate degrees, much less they don't have undergraduate degrees. And so really trying, like, there's this whole hidden curriculum. A hidden curriculum is thinking about all the unsaid things and rules that happen within a situation. And so there's a lot of hidden curriculum around PhD programs, in the way that you're supposed to approach your advisor, or what classes are you supposed to take, or how do you format, or how do you study for your preliminary exams. There's all this like hidden knowledge and rules that aren't necessarily made explicit. And so I think for a lot of students of color and just Black folks who don't have any family history of doing these programs, you don't know that you're not supposed to do X and do Y. And so it was kind of a lot of learning and failing, and that's what I really
Hmm.
love about sister mentors is it really makes explicit some of this implicit knowledge that these universities think you're supposed to have. And so I think that was
Yeah.
a challenge that I was also experiencing at the time.
So you were studying in Wisconsin. So basically you were a virtual member of Sister Mentors, but
Right.
this was also during COVID,
It
right?
was, right. Yeah. So yeah, I joined Sister Mentors in 2020 during COVID, and the timing was because I was um during 2020 and 2021, Sister Mentors had opened membership to mentors who weren't based in the DC area, and so it was like a an open window because of the pandemic. And so I actually haven't met my mentee in person yet. Haven't met many of the other sister mentors yet in person either. But I think on the flip side, we've spent so much time together on Zoom that I do feel like I know people and know and are a really big part of the sister mentors community.
Okay, so what was your dissertation on, and what was your research process?
Right. So my dissertation, I was looking at the politics of sex education reform in Ghana. And so, sex education, as we all know, is controversial no matter where you are in the world, whether you're, in DC, Wisconsin, South Carolina. And so, what I studied during my dissertation was basically how did policymakers, parents, and teachers, how do we decide or how do people decide what we should teach young people in school about sex, relationships, and their bodies? And so at the time in 2017, Ghana had just reformed its sex education policy to be comprehensive sexuality education, which is a type of sex education that just doesn't talk about abstinence, which is also very important, but talks a bit more about what does consent look like, what are reproductive rights for young people. So it's a bit more of a positive approach to sexuality education. And so I was studying the implementation of this new curriculum. And so I moved to Ghana in 2018 to start my dissertation research. And by 2019, this new sex education curriculum had become very controversial. And so it was in the newspaper every day. It was being highly debated because a lot of religious
Mm.
leaders felt that it was teaching young people that having sex before marriage was culturally appropriate. And so I was really studying what are the politics and what are the ideas and attitudes that folks have about which sex education curriculum should we teach or not in schools.
It's always been a question mark to me that just when you tell young people not
Right.
just don't do it, about anything really, 9 times out of 10 is
They're going to
because
do
it's not.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's much better to give them all of the information in order to make an informed decision for themselves. And therefore, like, yeah, of course, we don't want them all
Of
like a bunch of
course.
high school kids, like a bunch of young kids, before their brains are fully developed to just
Right.
go out and having sex. But you know what happens, and it's going to happen. And so let's give them all of the knowledge and information that they need to try to make wise decisions in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Were there any real life events that pushed this on to you outside of the fact that it was just in the news every day?
Right, right. Yeah, so I feel like most dissertation projects are personal. They have some spark in people's personal lives or
Mm.
experiences. And for me, this project, I felt like I was shafted by the South Carolina public education system. As an adult, I remember going to college and having to like basically teach myself sex education as an adult. And I'm like,
Mm.
why did no one teach me this? I took
Right.
sex education classes in high school and middle school, but they were very much the abstinence focused, risk based lesson. So it was um, a slideshow. If you all remember projectors back in the day, they put a projector on with all the STIs, sexually transmitted
Right.
infections that you would get if you have sex. And that
Right.
was sex education. Do not have sex. These are the STIs. Book closed. We're done. And so,
And I also feel like those were only like maybe like took up like a week in
yes.
health
Yep.
class.
Yep.
Like, and it's
That's
like
it.
it was just like one chapter kind of thing.
Right. That's it. And then as an adult, just really trying to figure out consent. What does consent mean? And just all these concepts that I felt that as a young person I should have been taught in school and I wasn't. And so I was really interested and drawn to Ghana, one because I had lived there before, but I was really excited that they were like taking a very forward approach to revamping their sex education curriculum. And so I think it just my childhood in South Carolina really influenced this research project.
Right on. And so when you got to when you finally officially joined Sister Mentors, what what did that look like? The help that you received, or any sort of encouragement in while you were writing?
So Sister Mentor was really helpful, I think, in the monthly goal setting that we do. And so we have this running Google Doc that everyone puts their goals on for the year. And every time we would meet, we would go over those goals. And so it really gave me that um, not only a timeline, but I think a sense of external accountability. So no longer was Regina just saying these things to myself and be like, yeah, missed another deadline. We gonna keep it moving.
No big.
No big. Life keeps going on, right? It was like, oh, I have to tell these other women who are also working on their PhDs that like, hey, I missed this deadline. And so I think for me that having that sense of external accountability was so helpful. And I think also the support, the mutual support, because I think that's what Sister Mentors is all about. Is really the mutual support that we give, not only to as mentors to each other, but also mentors to mentees. Listening to what other grad students were going through, Sister Mentors were going through, encouraged me that I wasn't in this alone. That we were all. I was based in Ghana, but I'm at a university in Wisconsin. Someone may be at University of Maryland. But we were going through the same exact things, right? Different programs,
Mm.
different fields of study. And it just reminded me like that this is just, this is some of the things that are a part of being in a PhD program. So it was really nice to have that support and to be able to troubleshoot issues within the group. Like, hey, I'm experiencing X, what's the approach that I should take? And so really being able to get that advice and support and encouragement was really helpful.
That's awesome. Did you was there anyone in particular that you formed a special bond with while there?
There is, and I'm because we're recording. I can't think of her name, but she finished and
Yeah.
she did her PhD at University of Maryland in gender studies. And I know we would often meet off camera to have a writing group during my
Oh,
first year
nice.
because she was trying to finish, and so it was really helpful just to meet with her I think we would meet on a weekly basis for a couple of months and check in with each other. And her field was very similar where she was in gender studies and some of my work was in gender studies as well. So it was nice to talk to someone who had a similar disciplinary background to kind of bounce ideas off of her. I'm blanking on a name right now.
It's fine.
Yeah.
When did you officially finish? When did you officially get your PhD?
Yeah, so I defended my dissertation in November 2022 and graduated in December 2022. So it's been over a year now. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.
The way I hear it is that once you do graduate, once you Sister Mentors gives everybody a little a piece of memorabilia with your new name and title on it. Or?
Yes, the pen. Yes, we get the engraved pen. So mine is actually on the way because I have not been in DC lately.
Right.
So my pen is coming, and I think one of the cool things that Sister Mentors did for me is I had a closed defense, which depending on your university. So an open defense means you can invite your friends and family and anyone in the world to come and attend. But in my department,
Really?
yes. And I've been to many people's defenses, but in my department, defenses are closed. So it was just myself and my committee. And so Sister Mentors hosted basically a celebration for me 2 days after I defended, where I could invite friends and family. And so that really just made it feel a bit more real, I think, to me, because I felt after defense, I was like, oh, it's over? Like, that's it? And so it was nice to have that online celebration, because we got to celebrate ourselves and all the amazing work we're doing.
Absolutely. If anybody is like in most recent news, Niecy Nash has taught us that
yes,
we thank
you.
yourself.
Yes, I saw that clip. I loved it.
So what has the PhD, what did it mean to your grandmother and to your family once you finally got that?
I feel like the PhD for, I guess, my grandmother and my family kind of meant that I, quote unquote, arrived. I'm using air quotes to the audience, that I've arrived. And so it's so funny. My family, they take every chance they can to call me Dr. Regina, right? I'm like, we at home. You don't have to call me Dr. Regina at the family cookout. I know who I am, but I think they're just so exceedingly proud that that I can be the first doctor in the family, which I am. And so I think that just makes them excited. And I think just my grandma's always excited about my job, and that I have a full-time job that I'm paid appropriately. And so I think she's just excited about that too, that I can do the work that I love and be paid my worth. And so I think that excites my family too. And my parents, and they're just wow, you can, my parents I love them. They're Southern Black folks, working class. And so the fact that I work from home, remote, on my computer, just I think sometimes baffles them, that you get paid to do this. I'm like, yes, I am working, but this whole I promise,
this
right?
Is legit.
Being a knowledge worker, I think is just a new thing for them, that yeah, I'm this is my job, and I don't have to, I go to the office maybe once every 2 months, but so yeah, I think they're just really excited about the doors of opportunity that is open for me.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, when you defend your dissertation, do you know right away whether or not it was successful, or is there a waiting period?
In my department, it was right away. So I think it was an hour and a half of them asking me questions and me talking about the work. I stepped outside of the room, and then I came back in. They're like, "Congratulations, Dr. Fuller."
Awesome. So, what does having the PhD mean to you, to Regina, to Dr. Regina?
Yes. I think for me, having the PhD means respect. That I'll be respected in my field and industry. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of Black folks in particular, and I think people of color, we are experts without the degrees, and I want to make sure I put that out there. We don't necessarily need the degrees. They're great. Well, we were experts before we got them, but I think just because of the way America is set up, and patriarchy and racism, our excellence is not recognized until we have a piece of paper or titles behind our name. And so for me, it's been that walking into rooms and having PhD behind my name commands a respect that maybe I didn't have before, right? Even though I have to say, I feel like I do have more skills now, but I knew what I was talking about before I went to grad school. So I think it's really helped me to just garner the respect that I am a thought leader in the field that I'm in, and that I know what I'm talking about.
Right on. And what is the field that you're in? What is it you're doing now?
Yes. So I work in international affairs, and so I am the senior technical advisor for education at Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. So Rotary International funds education projects in schools all around the world. And so I oversee a portfolio of about $3 million in grant funding that we support 60 countries. So, supporting education and teachers around the world is what I do.
And this is the Rotary Club that everybody is so...
Yes, right. So everyone, if you've heard of a Rotary Club, I work for the Secretariat, and so we support every single Rotary Club around the world. And I think that's about, I don't know the number of Rotary Clubs, but there are about 1.5 million Rotary members around the world in over 70 countries. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of Rotary Clubs, but I just never really quite understood what it was they do.
Right. Yeah. So Rotary is a service organization. So most people who join Rotary join because they want to do service in their communities. And so they do service through volunteer hours, but also in donations and donating to the Rotary Foundation. And so what we do as a foundation is we fund projects in different areas, but I focus on basic education and literacy. So funding projects with teacher training in schools in India, for example, or supporting early grade reading in Guatemala. That's another example. So really just trying to support teachers and students in some of the most marginalized communities across the world.
At any point during your research for your dissertation, did you ever feel like quitting? Had you hit a wall at any point?
Right. So I love field work. I think that's why I'm a policy anthropologist. I love field work and talking to people and connecting. That I could do all day, every day. Where I felt like quitting and giving up was in the data analysis, which is not as fun and sexy. It's where you're sitting behind a computer trying to make some sense of all this data that I've gathered. And I was just like, this is so much. I think to put some numbers behind, so I did a 3-year ethnography, and ethnography is a type of qualitative research where you are in country or in a place, you're deep in it for a long period of time. And so most people who do ethnographic field work, they do field work for like a year. I did 3 years. So you can imagine how much data I had. I had
Wow.
policy documents. I think I had done 40 interviews. I had done some focus group discussions with young folks. I had sat in about 20 different meetings, like school board meetings, religious meetings. And so I just had so much stuff to wade through. And it was just like, where do I even start? And what's a coherent narrative through this stuff? And so I think that was the data analysis and writing was like very difficult for me. And I think that's where I got close to giving up.
Is that just something that you just have to muddle through all on your own, or are there services that you can get for people to help, or I don't,
right?
Yeah, so what is that like?
You can get people to help, and so being a sister mentor, so I use some software, like a qualitative data analysis software, to help. And I think realizing that I didn't have to get through all of it, when someone told me that, I was like, oh, like I don't have to like cite every single thing that I possibly did during fieldwork in my dissertation. Oh, I didn't know that. So I think that was helpful in realizing like the dissertation is about telling a coherent story, right? That not everything that you've possibly collected or gathered will make it to the dissertation. And so that kind of helped me to lift the weight off my shoulders of everything doesn't need to show up in this document. And so in talking that through my data analysis, I think that helped talking those ideas through with folks and sister mentors, and just also trying to figure out who are the people that could help me through that process was really, so finding other PhD students who maybe we were in similar disciplines, and kind of we would have calls and I would just say everything out loud about what I was thinking. So that was helpful.
Do you have any plans to hopefully get to meet some of the women in person to visit the DC area?
Yes. So we're recording this. We're in January 2024. And so really excited about coming to DC this summer in June for one of the Sister Mentors alumni reunions. We're going to have one, and to also meet Alea and to meet the rest of the Sister Mentors in person. So really excited about that in June.
And get your pen.
And to get my pen, my official pen that says Dr. Regina Fuller-White on it.
That's amazing. Getting involved with sister mentors, is that something that you would encourage other young Black and brown women to achieve, to go ahead and do?
Yes, I'm always jealous of the young women who are in the Sister Mentors programs as mentees. And I was like, I wish something like Sister Mentors existed for me when I was in elementary and middle school. So if you are in the DC metropolitan area, I do encourage you to join, whether you're getting your PhD or if you're in high school and middle school. It's a great way to just connect with other women of color, but also to learn and to improve yourself in the educational opportunities available to you.
For more information on Sister Mentors, a project of EduSeed, please visit sistermentors.org. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Sister Mentors. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and don't be afraid to share. This podcast was produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Sister Mentors.